carry out in some studies in Turkey. Thank you very much, Aytekin Bey, for this very nice introduction, and I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you as well. Why is it important to increase the number of clinical studies in our country? This is the topic. There are no foreign guests amongst us, and we are talking about Turkey at the moment, and I will be as frank and sincere as possible in my presentation. Very briefly, this slide is not only valid for Turkey but also for all the countries in the world, because all the countries are trying to attract clinical studies to themselves. It's like a competition. I will try to answer why they're trying to attract the studies. The clinical research provides contribution to the production of information for development of drugs, and it also makes the methodology widespread and ensures a scientific platform for the researchers, and also it increases the early phase experience in drug research and increases the quality of diagnosis and treatment and reduces the burden on the shoulders of the state for diagnosis and treatment of disease, and also it provides to the contribution to the improvement of the infrastructure, both physically and technologically, in the research centers. So these are the reasons for a country to attract the clinical studies to itself, and Turkey wants to be a part of this competition. So are we that competitive in order to be a part of this competition as Turkey? Very objectively speaking, I think we have to speak about certain things as frankly as possible. The patient population is very important. In Turkey, there are 74 million people. It's a very significant population. And 67.2% of this population is between the ages of 15 and 64. It is just the right age group for clinical research. So in that sense, we are advantageous. So the rate of not being a part of clinical participation in terms of population is still very high. I don't know if we should be happy about that. I don't think so, because it means that a clinical study per person is very little. That's why we have naive patients. So in terms of researchers, we have approximately 60,000 experts. It's a very good number, but the number of experts who are experienced in multinational, multi-center studies, we see very few people. The research centers, 1,800 private and public hospitals are present, but in terms of data quality, we are not at a very good position. As far as I know, there are 5 inspections of Turkey by FDA, by Biopharm Germany, and 2 of them are they were found to be critically high. So in Russia, for example, the inspection rate is 30, and their scores are better than us. In terms of data quality, we do not stand at a good position, I think. When we look at international recognition, the level is low. What I mean by international recognition is that key opinion leader of clinical research. Aytekin Bey said to Mahmut Bey a minute ago that 4 studies have been brought to Turkey thanks to Aytekin Bey. That's what I was trying to say, actually. Because in order to attract clinical research into a country, you have to have more scientists. I mean, for the international platform, you have to tell them that you are the best center possible for that study, and you have to be able to involve the planned patients in the study and to produce quality data. This all mean that you will be attracting future studies to your country. In the UK, in Italy, in Spain, and in Germany, the researchers write down projects and participate in safety committees, and there are many studies as such. Yes, there are people from Turkey like that, but the number is very few. In terms of technical infrastructure, we are in a very good position. What we mean by technical infrastructure is that if we mean ultrasound devices or some other devices, we are in a very good position, maybe the best. But I think the basic infrastructure means human resources in the universities, in the research hospitals. Research teams are not present. When you start a research, for example, you try to eliminate many shortcomings regarding the research, starting from refrigerators, fax machines, to a site coordinator. So if we just consider all of them as infrastructure, we may say that we have significant deficiencies there as well. I will discuss about national legislation. I don't think that we are very successful, because talking about success in terms of a national legislation, it has to be predictable, it has to have a competitive edge, and it has to be certain. Especially in the past years, we have seen many surprises. Therefore, in the international arena, Turkey was in a very bad and difficult position, and the scores decreased to a great extent. When we talk about price advantage, Turkey is not very advantageous in that respect as well, because the price of a test or the money to be paid to research is not the only thing about the financial burden of a clinical research. You pay something to the site coordinator, you pay something for the tests, and you also pay for the comparator drug. For example, in the United States, the comparator drug is paid by the insurances for research purposes. In Europe, the diagnosis and treatment stages are very well defined. Therefore, in the clinical research, only the extra things are paid for. And in Turkey, for example, we have to pay for everything almost. We have to give a site coordinator. Transportation in our country is through airlines, and therefore the transportation cost is very high. Therefore, at the end of the day, we are not that more advantageous compared to other countries. I'm not drawing a pinky rosy picture, I think, but I think since this is between us, we have to discuss about certain things very frankly. And I think we are on the right track, because we have to mention the negative sides as well. Interestingly enough, Mahmut Bey has made this very easy for me. He gave very good data. However, the interesting thing is that I also took Israel as a comparator. I don't know if we're jealous of them, but we are in the same region, in the same geography. So in such a geography, we have a population difference by tenfolds. They have 3,700 studies and 7 million population. But here we have 70 million people, and we only have 1,444 studies. So this means that we are lagging behind in the competition. In 2013, the money allocated for drug R&D was $120 billion in the world. Right now, we have some estimated numbers only. What Turkey has to take from this with the current potential is $1 billion. But if you're curious about what it takes, actually, it is only $60 million. 2 or 3 years ago, it was for $40 million, and in a couple of years it increased by $20 million. So Turkey has a potential for $1 billion. Therefore, the current rate and current amount is very little. In Turkey, there are approximately 15 research institutes, and there are 350 clinical research professionals, 3 associations, Clinical Research Association, and AIFD, and SAGTER, so insufficient investment, and the legislation is not that good, and there are some practical problems as well. The reimbursement systems and the licensing process, they're all challenging. I'm not going to focus on that very much, but I would like to emphasize one thing. The research before the clinical stage, I'm talking about this part, it is very saddening, because in Turkey the infrastructure is, I'm not going to say it is insufficient, it is not present. It is zero. You have to come up with a drug, you have to formulate it, you have to do synthesis, you have to try them on animals, and you have to carry out in vitro studies. But right now in Turkey, I think we only have rabbits as a big animal, and you cannot work on a bigger animal, and there is no active laboratory as such. In other words, we are not in the innovation side, we are not in the research side, we're talking about R&D, but we only have activities in the development part, and it's only phase 2 and phase 3. Even phase 1 cannot be pronounced. This is very bad, because right now there are only 3 of phase 1 in Turkey, and there are a couple of proof of concepts. But this makes me sad personally, because Turkey has to go forward for early stage studies. I'm not going to dwell on these numbers very much because Mahmut Bey made a very good presentation about that. 80% is done in G8 or developed countries. So if there is an understanding that the clinical trials are carried out in not developed countries, but it is completely wrong. For example, the patient wants to become a part of clinical study, and we say they want to be a part of it, and we say, no, we are not doing that study in Turkey. And they say that we would like to go to that country then. And there are also some people coming from other countries for studies carried out in Turkey. In other words, the patients would like to be a part of the clinical study, then it's their right to be a part of it. So we have to see it as a patient's right. In terms of R&D expenses, Turkey's share is 0.05%. The number of clinical studies per 1 million people is 4 in Turkey and 191 in the USA. These are very striking numbers given by the Ministry of Science and Technology. And contrary to what is known, there are certain rules for research. Nuremberg Code is the first set of rules in this area. Maybe you read it and you just, are very scared. During the Hitler period, very bad methods were used on some samples, and then some codes were designed. Then WMI and CIOMS and GCP, ICH GCP, and ICH ACP GCP brought all of the previous ones together, and Turkey is following the EU legislation. Therefore, in 2001, the EU directive, of course, there are a lot of versions of it, approved the EU directive. I would like to look at the history in Turkey. The first regulation was enacted in 1993. In 2008, the regulation was amended. And in 2008, the regulation was wonderful because it was very parallel to that of the EU. However, in 2011, at the end of 2010 or 2011, the Ministry of Health had certain problems, and the case was taken to the Council of State, and the old regulation as an entirely was annulled. I think Turkey became deprived of an ethical committee, and at that time a very rapid law was introduced, and there are very important shortcomings there that we still suffer from. For example, in the private hospitals, clinical researches cannot be carried out because it's not specified in the law. So right now they're working on a new law. And in 2013, a new regulation was published. But our expectation is that the most recent regulation is going to be superior to the one before that. But each time we see more restrictions in regulations. For example, there is the requirement for having a pharmacist there. There are certain shortenings of periods on writing, but not in practice. Very briefly, I would like to talk about that. One of the best things about the new regulation is that we can be a part of the ethic committee as we want. And the ethic board or ethic committee does not have the right to say that I'm not going to take care of this study, but it has the right to say that I do not have a sufficient number of personnel to take care of this study, or the committee may say that. The conditions where the study is going to be carried out are unknown to me. Therefore, I believe I will not be making the correct decision about this project. But the committee cannot say I'm not taking care of this project right away, and it has to give a response in 15 days, and the ministry has 30 days. This can be done in parallel according to the words. However, in practice it is not possible, because both institutions are looking into the same documents, and the groups looking in the same documents may notify different shortcomings. Usually the firms get the confirmation of the ethics committee, and then they go to the ministry. So there is a wrongdoing there as well, because if the ministry has to give a permission to start the research in order to ensure that the committees, ethics committees, should be composed of members who are very experienced in ethical terms. So they should not do the assessment on a format basis only, but they have to look into the content as well, and they have to have that experience and professionalism. If you are participating in an international study, you have to get an import license as well, and it means 2 weeks extra. But the routine is that 1 year ago we could get approval in 7 or 6 months, 8 months. Right now we are getting an approval in 4 months or 5 months. It is, for example, 7 to 10 days in the USA, it is 7 days in the Netherlands, in Italy it is 2 months. But if that is 2 months, it is just 2 months sharp, not 2 months plus 5 days. So we are just lagging behind in that respect as well in Turkey. Mahmut Bey talked about a different area. He said that he is looking into face studies. The figures are parallel to one another, but my figures are from interventional studies. In Mene region, there are 103 studies. I am wondering about one thing. What is the rate of the psychiatric studies compared to other studies? All of them are interventional. There are 124,081 studies in the world in general, including psychiatry and other branches. 1,106, in other words, 0.88% are in taking taking a share from them, and 2,696 of them are psychiatric. Only 14 of them are here in Turkey, and the share is 0.52%. As you will acknowledge, the share of psychiatric studies in general studies is 2%, and I wondered about oncology. Oncology is 4 folds more. It's like 8%. Psychiatry is only 2%. But I think what is important here for you as psychiatrists is that 0.88 is for general. However, from psychiatry, it is even less, like 52%. Therefore, Turkey is participating in psychiatric studies even less than the standard. In my firm, we carry out psychiatric studies. Of course, this is my personal opinion. Of course, you're going to add something to that, but there are challenging studies in psychiatry. They say that oncology studies are challenging, but in my opinion, psychiatry studies are even more challenging, because they look into subjective evaluation methods. You can just get the results of hemoglobin in the other studies, for example. There are differences between ratings, and there is a validation problem of scales. You do validation, but since those scales are not used in the routine practice very frequently, there is a problem with regard to their evaluation. Placebo response rates are problematic as well. I think the clinical studies are the hardest in the field of psychiatry. I have 3 more slides. Very briefly, I would like to talk about them. I divided into 3 in terms of what are the benefits for the researcher, for the patient, and for the state. The benefits for the researchers: you have the chance to propose an alternative treatment for your patient. It also contributes to professional development. A minute ago we talked about R&D, and for about 20 years Turkey is carrying out late-phase studies, and the other countries are carrying out these studies for the past 150 years. Research is a discipline, and as we get into international studies, we learn more about methodologies. Therefore, we will be in a situation where we can carry out our own studies. Professional recognition is ensured, and the clinical research and experiment researchers are fast recognized because of their publications, and they establish a network amongst themselves and an international platform. Clinical research is an opportunity for making extra money, and also by taking part in the evaluation of a new treatment, they also have a role in providing a potential treatment for the human health. Last two slides. Advantages for the patients. Those patients who are newly diagnosed can access to drugs under which they cannot access under universal health insurance. As you know, there's primary level, secondary level, and tertiary levels, but in the clinical research, the patients can directly get access to these drugs. In all the treatment choices, when they complete all the treatment choices, participating in a clinical research is an opportunity for the patients, and that chance should be given to them. There are advantages for the country as well. International clinical research projects in Turkey is going to contribute to the development of R&D discipline. TÜBİTAK and Science and Technology Ministry right now are allocating large shares to the research projects. However, in order to produce those projects, you have to have a good script of them, and you have to manage them well. So in order to learn how to manage them well, international studies should be seen as an exercise, and it's going to be a great advantage for the state. Additional research is going to cover all the additional drugs and tests, therefore they contribute to the country's health economics. This may be looked down to, however, in my recent study, the comparator drug was only for the patients $4 million. And one study paid only the comparator drug and no imaging and laboratory tests, and $4 million was only for drugs, and this kind of money is not going to come from your Social Security Institute. So while I'm saying this, I think you have to, of course you have to behave in an ethical way, and you have to have very good ethical committees, and the researchers should be very competent about the projects, and they have to be able to talk about these with the ethic committees, and the scientific platforms as such should be established as well. Thank you very much for your patience.